fortune to have mixed 3 different artists. Well, I've mixed 2, and I've been before they called them A2s. I was a front of house helper. The very first time, that was 1975, 74, and at the Albert. So
I follow I follow the house organist on social media.
Anna Lapwood.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. And I tell you what, that organ in that place is stunning. Absolutely stunning. She's actually in Miami this week, just north of Miami.
Greg, what type of what type of length are we talking about reverb wise in that room?
I would say it's not as long as you might think. Actually, it's below 20. Okay, as big as it is, it's more like in the worst part of the hall, I would say 10 to 12 milliseconds.
Really?
Yeah, because if you look at the picture, they have all this acoustic treatment.
Yeah.
All these globes. I mean, it's incredible how it sounds. You could sit, you stand on stage and clap, and it's not like like if you're in a tin can, in a shed.
What's the name of the venue?
Royal Albert Hall in London.
Oh, that's pretty famous.
Yeah, and the whole ceiling is suspended. I mean, but it's suspended
like clouds.
Plaster.
Yeah, and it looks like clouds.
Yeah.
So what shows did you do there?
Stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And if put it this way, you can't go in there with a super loud band. Okay.
What bands have you been in there with?
Well, I was in there with Gary Moore, but Gary Moore was playing through Super Twin,
right?
And but I was in there with Frank Sinatra, and then Frank Sinatra, Gary Moore, and Tony Bennett.
Did you say Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I am impressed.
I was mixing. Frank had his own engineer. I forget his name.
Rick Southern.
Yes. And so IES did sound for them then, and I was the second septic hired by David Hartstone. He hired Dick Hansen, who's now in films, and so that was my first week ever in London, and here I am.
Well, congratulations, man! You've made it, and now you're back in Florida, and you just bought a new house, and you've moved.
Yes.
And look at you! You've got boxes everywhere. I can't see them, but I know they're there.
Oh yeah. There is that no-go room right now.
The go no go room. That's like NASA. There it is. The go no go. There you go.
Room. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, 48 hours ago, I moved out of my old place that I've been for 25 years, and it's amazing how much stuff you accumulate in 25 years. And I donated so much audio gear to local local organizations around here. Man.
Well, congratulations. Now that you've moved, I think you should Google George Carlin's stuff. Has anybody heard that routine about George Carlin?
It's great.
He was way ahead of his time. Ahead of his time. He's still, he's still very high up in my heart. I love that guy. He makes me laugh so much.
Yep.
Great, so, and it was the seven dirty words you can't say on television.
Yeah.
That was the first time I heard him. Yeah.
Now there's like 15 or 20. It's all right. Hey, look at me, Ma. I can't.
Was it 7 or was it more than that? I don't remember.
No,
I
It
don't
was
know.
7.
I think
Yeah.
it was 7. Yeah.
But fortunately, we're not on television, so fuck it. We could say whatever we want. That's all there is to it. We just get a different kind of rating. Like when they ask me, is this for children? And I say, no, not for children.
All right,
It's
I
for
got a
children
good
of
one
all
for
ages.
you. Does anybody
Go ahead.
remember him as the hippy dippy weatherman?
Oh,
Unfortunately, I do. Yeah. Well, that broke him.
Wait,
Who are we talking about here? I had to take a phone call.
George Carlin.
George
Oh
Carlin.
yeah, the hippy dippy weatherman. Absolutely.
yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
believe you guys remember that. That's great.
That was laughing.
Yes.
And I ended up working for George Slaughter, who produced that show. George is like a producer comedy legend kind of guy.
Oh, the first few
Anybody
years
who
of
does
that was
comedy.
great. That was
And
a
I
great
have
show.
the rare distinction of having been fired by George Slaughter after doing 2 shows for him. The second show, we got fired. I basically what had happened was we were doing a benefit for Barbara and Marvin Davis
Kurt
at the
Hare.
Carousel of Hope Ball.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Kurt Hare.
Yeah, sure. This story isn't important. Go
You
ahead.
freeze?
Yeah, are you?
Or did I freeze?
Where are you? He's on his
Who
way
is
to
that?
France.
C-Tech.
No. What?
Oh, that's weird.
I'm in C-Tech still.
Oh,
Oh, there it is, Kurt. What's going on? That's an airport behind you. What's? It looks like you got bacteria behind you on the ceiling.
Delta Lounge.
All right, you're a frequent flyer. You got prestige. I like that.
Yeah.
so
Oh,
you
by the
going on
way,
vacation, Kurt? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm not
Vacation.
gamble hunting this
That
time.
was weird.
very good. He's on a secret mission, which we can't talk about here. Otherwise, we'll have to put it on Signal. But other than that, no politics spoken here. That's the name of this show. Welcome to Thinking Out Loud with Friends. Remember, everything you hear is an opinion, so do your own research. And thanks for watching. Boy, we are getting up there in views. I mean, Kurt, you're in one of the video shorts that we got, 1.7 thousand views, which is pretty impressive. So thanks for participating, everybody in the room. And now back to our show in progress.
Am I actually in shorts though? In the video?
I know.
We get you from the top up.
So up. So
Okay.
Are you in your shorts or in your underwear?
only Zoom knows for sure.
Yeah, really.
Well, it's a suit and tie from here up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's like COVID days where everybody just, when the Zoom calls came in, all they would do was wear shirts or jackets and no pants underneath it.
I can't even remember when I last had a sport coat and a tie. I don't even own any ties anymore.
I just found 20 when I was moving.
You found 20?
I'm sure Facebook Marketplace is looking for you.
Oh, that's so.
And I'll bet they're not skinny, are they?
No. Oh man. I looked at that and I went, nope.
So
When I worked for Raytheon, they made us wear ties, and I went out and bought the ugliest ties I could find. Big old, wide, nasty, ugly ties. It's like, all right, you want to make me wear a tie? I'll wear the worst tie I can find.
The fish ones were pretty funny.
Yeah.
What are the most irreverent ones you guys have?
Well, you know what I use my tie? I'm not sure actually. I'm finding a whole bunch. I know I do, but I'm using my ties now for leashes for Max, my dog.
You tie your women up with them?
Yeah,
The Riders in the Sky guys have a cat tie. It looks like a saguaro cactus.
The only ones I have are the Jerry Garcia ones. And they're too expensive to use as a dog leash.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh, those are some nice ties, though, Jerry Garcia ties.
I have a yellow submarine tie. I have a Mickey Mouse tie.
I have a whole bunch of light up ones with little LED strips, and you just put in a little micro thing, and you have a little remote button. If somebody gives you grief during a meeting, you just kind of hit the
flash them?
Fuck off.
Well, Greg, you're looking good for a man who went through a lot of shit in moving,
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you something. When you were packing these boxes, did you find anything in particular that really said, oh my God, I didn't even know I had this?
Oh yeah, I found
Other
a lot
than
of that,
dirt or
but I
dust or
didn't
something
have
like that.
time to sort it because they they moved up my clothes. So I had 1 week less than what I would normally do. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to pack it.
Did you find any Meyer M3A processors?
No.
Are you looking for one?
Couple,
I'm
right?
looking for 4.
Kurt? Yeah, Kurt.
Oh, well, hey, I know this place on the internet that could help you out.
Yeah, just
But,
cost too much to deal with.
Yeah, and look, today I'm making it, so today I made the decision this morning. I made the decision to make a major change at SOUNDBROKER, and there's going to be a new field right now. And so instead of me selling stuff, it's going to say that you could buy it for this is what the seller wants, and this is the SOUNDBROKER finder's fee. And if you want it, you just pay the finder's fee, and we give you the guy's name and number. And now I'm taking off all limits. So in other words, even if something's, $20,000, you can be able to buy it without taking my 15% commission. You can pay me a couple of $100 and you're on your own, And so I'm hoping that works well. And we'll see what happens. I'll keep you in the loop.
Kurt,
When does that kick in? When does that kick in, John?
It's kicking in as soon as the designers finish the fields, so that I can enter the data. It's not going to be retroactive. It's only going to be brand new in other words, it would be too complicated to go through all of the listings. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of listings on SOUNDBROKER. And so I can't make it retroactive. So I said I made a decision that starting as soon as the fields become available and the new listings come in, that's when I'll start adding those numbers in. And hopefully it'll work. If not, I'm on to retirement.
So, Jan, you never stocked any of this gear in your event. You don't have a warehouse, do you? Or do you?
No, but I did at one point when I was working for Avid. When I was doing the Avid trade-in program, Paul Marini, I don't know where Paul is. He's in Nashville right now. He's working for Clearcom. Great guy, love him. He set up a deal with me that we became the official trade-in partners for Avid. And so when they were selling out the S6L, instead of people were holding on to the profiles, and they needed to move the profiles, so they made a really attractive offer. If you would sell your profile, that would give you a huge discount on the S6L. And all of those boards went to us. And what I found out is that they were discontinuing this board, the profile. So I sold a bunch of them, and then I took the rest of them, broke them up for parts, and made 100 times more money than I would have made it if, yes, I was selling parts like crazy.
Are you seeing a lot of QLs and CLs now, Yamahas?
No. Nope.
Really?
Nope.
Wow.
Nope. Not seeing a lot of it. Well, you remember when I first started SOUNDBROKER, it was me. That was it. There was nobody else doing it. Then I guess this guy named Marcel down out of Florida saw what I was doing, and he said, wow, I could do it better than Jan. And so he started a company called Gear Source, which he's still a pain in my, they say that imitation is the most serious form of flattery. And to be honest with you, I wish he would stop flattering me, because whatever idea I have, next day I see it on his site. When I introduce something on my site, 2 days later I see it on his site. He changes it around just enough. Like, for example, I have a wanted section. He has a need section, but God bless him. I don't love the guy. I tell you, I don't love him.
Have you ever met him?
I have met him. I'm not going to talk about our meeting, although he wanted to buy SOUNDBROKER. But it seems like everybody who ever wanted to buy my company thinks it's worthless, and they want to give me less. They want me to pay them to take it over, and I'm not about to do that. Hey, this company made me a millionaire. What the hell? I don't understand it.
Yeah, that's great.
It's like I'm living the life. I'm living the life I dream about.
How long have you had SOUNDBROKER?
We started in 1997.
Wow.
Bye, Greg. Thanks for coming. And but Greg, just before you go, I know you think things are not going the way you want it to right now. You just moved, it's moving, like there's three things in life that are really horrible. The divorce is one, being fired and, moving into a new house, but all things considered, Greg, you're doing better than Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Oh
right.
man, was that a bummer, huh?
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Have a safe trip. Kurt.
65 years old, dying of
Have a
cancer.
good week.
Take care, Greg.
And he played one of the most iconic characters. I love that. I loved him as Doc Holliday in Tombstone. Just what a character.
And
what
even
a character.
Batman and Top
Batman, yeah.
Yep, and Top Gun,
Okay.
Top Gun, yeah. I mean, he's had a long run. I couldn't believe it when I read it. Was it yesterday or this morning?
Well, he was suffering. I have to tell you, I can't imagine him not suffering, losing his voice. Throat cancer is not a comfortable thing to have. I know people that have died from that. It's not easy.
He beat the cancer. He died from pneumonia.
Yeah, he died from pneumonia. Yeah.
Yeah. May he rest in peace. I will say that. He gave us a lot of hours of great enjoyment and entertainment. And, thank you, Val, for that. Anyway, and speaking of movies, seeing we're talking about movies, did you guys hear the latest news? You know who Sam Menendez is, right? The director?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he just sealed the deal with Sony Pictures. They're going to do a 4-pick ep of the Beatles. It's a 4 Beatles biopic series. I don't know any of these actors. Maybe you guys do. Harris Dickerson, Paul Mescal, Barry Keoghan, and Joseph Quinn, and they're going to play the iconic 4. And the movie's going to be released in April of 2028. So, I mean, there's going to be a bio-ep of the Beatles.
One movie per Beatle. There's 4 movies, each one stars in their own.
Oh, that's how it works.
Oh,
okay,
I thought it would be the 4 guys together over the course of 40 years or something, from when they not 40 years, but since the beginning to the end,
I don't know how they're joining them together, but it's 1 movie per person.
Interesting.
And speaking of iconic bands, David, tell everybody what you've been through in the last couple of days. I mean, Dave, take it away, Mr. David Dansky.
I have found the fountain of youth of music. I've done a lot of cruises, working with Charo and Debbie Reynolds and all these acts. I've done well over 100 cruises in my life.
Really?
I have never been on a cruise as much fun as these music cruises from Star Vista Live. They have 9 different kinds of cruises, and I happen to have them here. I went on, well, let me start by saying last March, there was a 70s rock and romance cruise. And they brought in headliners and they brought in tribute bands. And Hotel California was one of the tribute bands. And so I got to get on the ship and see nonstop music all day, every day. And it's just completely different than anything I've ever done. It's like a floating Woodstock.
So you were working?
Not this time. We fell in love with it so much that Myrna and I said, we're going to go on the next one because we've never seen a cruise like this before. What's the next one? The next one is the Flower Power Cruise. So we went on the Flower Power Cruise and we just paid for it. And we just got back a couple of days ago and I had so much fun. I'm going to read you who's on the next Flower Power Cruise because I forgot. Well, I can tell you who's on this one, but the Beach Boys.
Yeah, start with what you saw, and I was talking to David offline, and Myrna seemed to like the Family Stone, without Sly.
My neighbors have been on that cruise several times. They said the last one they went on, Mickey Dolenz, was so hammered the entire time that they were on the show.
Well, he wasn't on ours, but it's just amazing. That Family Stone is without Sly, obviously. He just can't do it. And they've got Sly's daughter, who's Cynthia, and Cynthia was the trumpet player. And they've got Jerry, the original sax player. And then they got a lead guy who's phenomenal. And he's like a Prince and Sly together. And the band is great. The thing about these cruises are, a lot of the acts that are on there are not the full acts. Hardly any are. They have maybe one guy or two or three guys, and then they have replacements. Well, when you get replacements, you get great musicians.
A lot of times, yeah.
Get to see these great bands. One of the acts on this cruise was Jan from Jan and Dean. Now, that's a early 60s band, and they had some great hits, and they played their hits, and then they played all sorts of other music. And, oh, by the way, they had sitting in Jeff Baxter on their set.
Wow.
Oh, my God. So do they happen like at the pool and in the theater, or are they all over the place?
There's the theater has performing arts. They have a D&B sound system with a Digico SD12 console. They have the pool deck where they completely build a stage out there and more D&B sound. And then they have a nightclub for smaller stuff. And then they have another place that's even smaller than that for speeches and, talks. But this was at the pool, and Jan and the band and Jeff Baxter, they're playing, Mickey Don't Lose That Number. They're playing Doobie Brothers. They're playing amazing music. And that was just one of many bands that were great. There were a lot of surprises. For example, Peter Noon from Herman's Hermits. First of all, he was really young when he started. So he's in his maybe early 70s now. And he's one of the funniest people on the stage. He had the audience laughing just like I was at a Debbie Reynolds show or a Jim Neighbors or a Charo show. He was an entertainer, telling stories, walking around the audience, making people laugh, and singing his hits, and then singing other songs. Silhouettes from the 50s. Silhouette, 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 that kind of stuff. You just never know what songs you're going to hear. You never know what the backing musicians are. The backing musicians for Peter Asher, who discovered James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt and produced all sorts of stuff, and he was part of Peter and Gordon. Their band was the Loving Spoonful, who back him up. I mean, it's just an amazing day. The day starts at 10 something in the morning and goes until an 12:15 at night show.
So what cruise line supports this usually?
It's a company that charters the cruises. So they charter cruises with Celebrity, and next year this cruise is going to be on the larger ship on Holland America.
Okay.
But it just depends on.
Let me ask you a logistics question. When the ship leaves port, how does it go? How many ports do you see, or is it all at sea?
Well, normally a 7-day cruise, these are 7-day cruises. Normally a 7-day cruise goes to 3 ports.
Right, 3.
This one goes to 2 because there's just too much music. And nobody gets off. There's music going on while they're inshore.
Where do they start usually?
Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
So I'm going to read you my Sunday. Now, the ship sailed on Saturday, so Sunday was the first full day. So at 10:30 in the morning, it was the Jukebox Beatles, which was a Beatles tribute band, and they were really good. Then at 11:30, there was in the lounge, it was a talk from a bunch of the acts who were around in the 60s. It's called The British Are Coming. And they were telling stories about being in London and hanging out with the Beatles. And this is when so-and-so went, Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas and all these acts. So you get to listen to them talk. Then for the matinee was Jay and the Americans. Then the next guy was from the Woodstock Museum in Bethel, New York. And he was giving a talk about all the things they found on the site, like archaeology stuff, things that people were using 60 years ago, kinds of food containers and things.
From Woodstock?
From Woodstock. And then they had, is it Henry Dill?
Yeah, they went through, didn't they go through the garbage dumps?
They went through the garbage dumps and took out stuff and was saying look, this is margarine made from 100% corn oil. Let's clog your cavity, your capillaries with this stuff. I mean, they showed how poorly we were being treated. But then the photographer, Henry Diltz, who did James Taylor's album covers and the Doors Morrison Hotel and Crosby, Stills and Nash in front of the house, that guy, he was there showing photos that was doing, because it's not all music. Then the Cowsills came up. The Cowsills were great. And they started when they were kids. They were like 10 years old when they had
Indian Lake, baby, Indian Lake.
I love the Flower Girl, and they were
Hair.
great.
They did hair too.
That's what the Partridge Family is based
That
on.
was at 4 o'clock. Then at 6:30 were the Temptations in the theater. And then at 9:45, the songs of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Were the Temptations good? I've done some shows with them before. They were so damn good.
With who?
The Temptations.
Temptations.
Yeah. They were so slick.
Oh man, I loved them.
And then at 11 o'clock was Rare Earth. And then at 12:15 was a band called the Newbies did the Abbey Road album. This was one day.
Oh my God.
Non-stop music. I had such a blast. And they have the 70s rock and romance. They have the 60s. This was Flower Power, by the way. Where everyone was in tie-dyes and, it's just, you get into it, And then we're going on one in November. That's Malt Shop, which is more like early 60s, late 50s. Where is the Malt Shop?
Didn't you say you booked a ticket right now for the 50s music?
That's the one called the Malt Shop Cruise. Paul
Okay.
is going to be on that one, and I forget who else. A whole bunch of people.
So, Dave,
Well,
is
there's
there
a
a
lot of doo-wop bands.
website where they advertise all this stuff? Because I knew that these existed, but I had no idea where to go to find out about them.
Well, I found out because of the sound guy. Well, let's talk about sound. The guy who's up at the pool deck, Greg, does all of these cruises. And not only these cruises, but there are other companies as well that I found out. Sixth Man, Sixth TH Man, does these also. Robin Trower was on a Rock the Tar Guards cruise. I mean, there's companies doing this, but this is StarVistalive.com. And they really know how to do it. So anyway, this guy, Greg, he's doing 10, 15 cruises a year as a sound guy. He has a whole career of, floating on the ocean, and he does a great job. Oh, the sound, by the way, in these shows were phenomenal. Every once in a while it wasn't, and I figured it was their mixer who was screwing it up, the band's mixer. But the guys who are there, and it's a company out of Atlanta. And
you mentioned something to me in the conversation that you didn't even get to see the ocean. How is that possible that you're on a cruise and you couldn't see the ocean?
Yeah, we always get a balcony room, so I sit out every morning and drink coffee on a balcony and watch the day
balcony
go.
rooms are great, but this room, this next cruise is already sold out.
Whoa!
Sold out before the previous one ends. Every year, every one of these cruises. So the only way to get on this cruise after the fact is that on Tuesday at 5 o'clock, if a room opens up on their website, they offer it. Now, everybody knows this, and there's a waiting list of like 1,000 names. So these things go in 15, 30 seconds.
Wow.
Cruise, and I got an outside cabin, no balcony. I wanted a balcony. I couldn't get a balcony. But I would have taken an inside cabin because whatever it takes to get on one of these cruises makes it worth it.
Is it much more money than just the regular cruise itself?
You got to pay for 150 musicians to be on the ship.
Oh, I know. That's why I was wondering. So in comparison, twice as much?
Yeah, but if you think about it as how many concerts are you seeing?
Right.
It's peanuts.
So let me ask you, so what is the pricing on something like this?
I have to ballpark because I don't remember. But I think a regular 1 week cruise is something around $2,000 a person, 2 people per room. So about $4,000.
That seems about right.
Right. This cruise, I think, is about $6,500
per person, or
No.
for 2?
Total.
David,
right?
yeah, David,
Yeah.
they can't have so many musicians, so many concerts that are different every day. So you must have, like, let's say the Temptation. It must be like this day at this time, then that day at this time. Because I mean, if they have to have musicians, for 10 hours a day for 7 days, I mean,
and their
that's
cruise.
a lot of people. Yeah,
That's a lot of rooms too.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What they do is, of course, in the middle of the cruise, they'll get rid of the first half of the acts who played, and they'll put in the second half. So they only have to put half of the musicians
Okay, so when you do when you do your layovers, like they switch bands in and out?
Well, when you take off from Fort Lauderdale, they have about half the acts on. And then when you get to the middle, which happened to be Jamaica this time, those acts got off and the new acts got on. And
you're out theoretically sightseeing that day, right? And they're changing bands.
Well, yeah, but there are some people who are on the whole cruise. A lot of the backing musicians stay on for the whole cruise. I would say that everybody who comes on, first of all, the theaters in these older cruise ships, because the newer cruise ships are different. They can't use the newer cruise ships because you have to have 50% of the passengers being able to sit in the theater to watch a show, because every act performs twice. The people who eat the early dinners get a gold ticket. The people who eat the late dinners get a silver ticket. And this is the concert for the silver ticket. You know, the Temptations this day for the silver ticket at 6:30, and then at 8:30 they'll do the show for the other people, because it depends on when your meal is. So they perform twice, and they also have to do 2 events, like sitting up and talking about their careers or something like that. Plus, they're walking around the ship, and you take a picture with them and talk to them all you want. You know, it's really interesting. Some acts are on more than once or more than twice, like the Cowsills. They love these cruises. So not only are they on for their shows, but they show up and sit in for other people's shows as well. They're just a lot of fun to be around.
So there's a lot of music, a ton of music going on all the time.
Each of the acts is really only on once for your group. Like I read you who I saw, then 3 to 4 days later was the Classics 4 and the Association, Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, Peter Asher again, the Cowsills again, they were on the whole ship, the Papas and Mamas, obviously a tribute band, Jan and Dean's Beach Party again with Jeff Baxter, the Family Stone, the Jefferson Starship was on. I mean, they just bring on new people. So you're just locking the music all the time. And because you're either in the theater or on the pool deck facing in, yeah, there's an ocean out there. You look at it. When you're having lunch, you go sit on the balcony in the restaurant and you look at the ocean, but then you're back watching music. Or
no sound checks?
Yeah, there's sound checks. You can go to a sound check if you want. I went to the sound check. The Family Stone. I'm in the food place, and I see this guy who I saw on the 70s cruise. I said, "Did you work in the 70s?" He's got like a bandana on his head and stuff. You leaving?
Bye, Kirk. Good luck. Have a safe flight.
Yeah, I gotta go board this ridiculous flight. I really want to know what the hell's Fred's wall, though.
Yeah, well, we could always use our imaginations.
Whatever that is. Kurt, all right, hopefully I'll survive the 10-hour flight.
Kurt?
All right, Fred, before you go, Fred, could you hear us? What's on your wall? What is that on your wall?
That was a wall in Vegas a couple years ago. I don't know. It was probably, it was in an NFL game. I don't know.
They look like little shells.
Little shells or something. It was stuck to a wall in Vegas. I liked it. Thought it would be a cool background. And there it is.
Good flight, Kurt.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, have a good flight.
Bye.
Take it.
So, David, did you say you worked one of these?
Last March, Hotel California was the tribute band.
Did you get a regular room?
Yeah, I had an outside room. I don't know if I had a balcony or not.
I just know how they do cruise on cruise ships, and I just wondered if they stuck you down in in the belly of the ship, or if you had like
you're talking inside
room.
Cabin. No, we didn't. The inside cabin is sell out because people say, "Why do I need a window when I'm up with the bands on? I'm never in the cabin all day long." So they don't need to put the bands in the inside cabins. They put them in regular cabins. Not that they have balconies, but they have a porthole.
Right. I was just wondering. Because, the people that work on the ship are in those little 2 people per room, little tiny 3-foot wide rooms.
Yeah, they work for the cruise line. This is different.
Okay, that's...
backstage passes. It's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, man, these things are great. They are so much fun. And people decorate the doors. Everyone talks to everybody. It's not like, first of all, it was the flower power, so it was the hippies. And I was, by the way, the museum in Woodstock wanted me to give a video deposition on what my life was like at Woodstock. So,
Oh yeah, tell about that. That's pretty cool.
I'm part of the Woodstock Museum now.
Very,
Yeah.
very cool. Now,
So did you
David,
have your
flower
did you
power.
have your bell bottom pants and your shirts and all that stuff?
I didn't have bell bottoms, but I definitely had tie dye on. So
Did you have to be careful of the alcohol, not the alcohol, but the beverages that were being passed around? Was anybody drinking apple juice?
well, they
Apple
did say
juice.
get down off the balconies.
You know, the question is it flower power? You think of the hippies, you think of marijuana, you think of pot. Was people smoking pot like crazy on the boat or what?
What, do you want to get arrested? You can't bring pot on a ship. It's going to another country. That's the last thing you need to do.
You went to Jamaica. Come on.
Well, if you get off the ship is one thing. I wouldn't be bringing that on the ship.
Ah,
I mean, they may, but people take chances.
I love cruises, man. I'll have to check out this band thing.
Oh man, it's great.
This is great.
StarVistaLive.com.
Cool.
and
I
how
just
was the
watched
weather,
a
Dave?
cool-
I wrote it down here.
I just watched a cool documentary on the Smithsonian Channel last night about the biggest cruise ship in the world. It's like 4 football fields long,
Whoa.
football fields wide, and it had zip lining and tubes, jet tubes that you get down into pools and
All right, so that's the icon of the seas. It's Royal Caribbean, and
Royal Caribbean's been replaced.
here's the thing. When you get a fish, and you get a fish that's a 6-pound fish, and then you get another fish that's a 9-pound fish. It's not this. It's fatter. And these cruise ships are all about 1,000 feet long. They're just fatter. They have to pass through the Panama Canal, but they get taller and wider. The Icon of the Seas has almost 6,000 passengers and a crew of 2,000.
yeah, it was crazy to watch the behind the scenes of all this stuff. It's on the Smithsonian Channel if anybody wants to watch.
So on our honeymoon, we went to Alaska, and it was on the Solstice, which was on Celebrity, and we did the backstage. It was an all-day long tour of how the ship worked, and oh my God, it was so interesting.
That's great.
And I was so impressed because all the new ships are like 95% green and efficient, and how they dealt with garbage and how they dealt with, of all that stuff. And we got to walk down through the kitchens and how they figure out meals, and then into the engine rooms and the control rooms. We went up on the bridge, and it was like $150 each, and it was an all-day tour, and it was so amazing.
You were so
On this
impressed that you
particular-
wanted to go out and buy one of those ships,
Oh,
right?
I'd love
so you
to have
bought a
one of-
ship.
And you know what impressed me the most? I've been on 7 cruises now since I got married. And what really amazes me, and maybe it's different on these rock and roll ones because it's so many people, but they design them so well that you'd think on the Solstice we had 3,500 guests and almost one person per guest working on the ship in one form or another. So there was 6,000 to 7,000 people on this ship. And very rarely did I pass anybody in the hallway going to my room. Passed a lot of people in the elevators and, everywhere else. But going down the hallway, because there's so many entrances and exits and you can take stairways and elevators. And then, we would get into our hallway and just go like 4 rooms down and we were in our room, but rarely, I stood in the hallway a couple times and thought, man, I never see anybody in these hallways. And or maybe way up at the end, you'll see somebody pass by or something. But I was so amazed, and I didn't feel claustrophobic at all. And we always get balcony rooms, which I just love. And I'm a big cruise fan now, and I thought that would be the last thing I'd ever want to do is be bored on a boat.
On this particular episode that I watched last night, I was amazed at how much the ship could actually move. They had a water show on this particular cruise, like where they had these divers that would dive in, and they had to come out and announce to the audience that they stopped the show because it was unsafe for the divers to dive from 60 feet in the air into 14-foot water because the water was sloshing in the pool so badly that they weren't sure that the diver was going to have enough water to not hit the bottom. So they
I would have thought that when they dove off the platform, the ship would have moved out of the way and they would have dove right into the. Those ships go like 30 miles an hour. They're reasonably fast for how freaking big they are.
I was in Germany in June on the Disney's tribute as it was being built. I was in the shipyard as they were building that out.
Were you faxing out the theater or something?
Actually, no, I was doing accessibility for another cruise line, but it's 2 years. I'm 2 years into this project reviewing plans for this cruise ship that's being built. We're still reviewing plans for and the holes are already put together for the ship, but the pools. The biggest problem with the pools is the anti splash baffles in them. But they have to have these big baffles to stop the water from sloshing around, and
wow,
they hold twice as much fresh water on the ship as they have for pools because they're going to lose that much between ports. So there's a whole one whole deck, and all it is water reserve.
I'm
So,
surprised that they
Wow.
don't have the desalinators on board so that
Well,
they can replenish.
The Solstice does. The Solstice makes all its own water, and you can drink the water out of the faucets and everything. It's all good water.
But it takes time to do that. It's not an instant process. So they're constantly refreshing it. So
Okay.
I'm surprised they don't have saltwater pools.
They do.
Some
I
of
think
them.
there are saltwater pools.
some do and some don't, depending on the pool and which one you're in.
Really?
A friend of mine went to a couple of different places to do refurbs of the theaters, and the ships were in dry dock. And he says, I spent 2 weeks 2 to 3 weeks on a cruise ship that didn't go anywhere. They all lived right on the boat, and they had to retool the PA system in the theater and retool a PA system in these different places. And I had one friend who did the original install on a ship coming out of Germany or someplace, and they had to put the system in the theater while they were out on sea trials in the North Atlantic. And he said it was so dangerous because racks were like rolling around like down the hallways, because they couldn't keep, they'd forget to tie one down or something, and they all got sick because they weren't used to that. So
yeah, well, when I was on tribute, I think it was DMB was what it was, but they had already had all their speakers on the deck before the deck was polished and put in, and the water slide was still going in. They just had them all wrapped up in plastic, hanging in the air already.
The reputation for cruise, technical cruise, is not that good from what I hear.
Reputation meaning what?
How they're treated, how crews are treated, like the guys who do, they're on ship.
Technical crews?
Yeah, the technical crews. Yeah. Did I hear wrong? I mean, maybe David.
Nobody.
I can imagine it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of stuff to go on.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts, and it's got to be done in these little amounts of times. Like when they're on the excursions, you got 2 hours to get all the shit off the boat that's got to go off, and all the new food back on.
Well, I also know that some of the guys, I always talk to the guys in the theater, and some of the guys in the theater, when the theater show is done, they go to the bar and they run the PA system in the bar because there's a combo in the bar. And then the next day in the morning, they're, it's some other thing that they set up and they plug in the wall, and it just pops out of the speakers, and then back in the afternoon, they're doing a rehearsal in the theater again. And then they go do a bar thing, and then they come back to the theater and do the show. So they are very busy. Yeah.
There isn't a job on the ship that isn't full where somebody isn't working all day, every day. No matter what your position is, if you're a waiter, you're constantly working. If you're a sound tech, you're constantly working. If you're a musician, you're constantly working.
Well, on the changeover days, they have everybody help each other too, right? I mean, you're not necessarily even doing the job you got hired to do, right?
You're talking about the port day where they change the people,
Yeah, when they're changing everything around, yeah. Everybody sort of works.
Maintenance work to do. Every once in a while, you can get off the ship. I mean, that's their only chance to get off the ship too. So they go, they mail stuff, and they.
It depends on and the job you're in. I had a couple of good friends that were entertainers on cruise ships, and they would move between cruise ships to cruise ships, but they got paid good money. They figured they could do it for 5 to 6 years and then move on to something else. And they racked up some pretty good cash at the process. So, but the guys that are the porters and stuff, I don't know. It depends on which country the ship's flagged out of too, based on the rules that they've got to follow.
Yeah, what you'll find is a lot of the people, like especially in the entertainment, but or the casinos, because when you're in port, the casino doesn't do anything, so they'll go out and be tour guides, or they'll be salespeople.
Yeah, we had a tour guide in Alaska that was on a cruise ship, and she was down. So she would 4 months of the year she's in Alaska driving a bus around and doing tour guide stuff.
No,
Where
I
did
mean,
you sail out? Bruce, when you did Alaska, Bruce, where did you sail out of? Seattle?
Seattle. We flew to Seattle, and we did Seattle. We did the Inside Passage and went to all the cities you go to, that are right on the water there. And then we did the big 360 in the bay where the big iceberg is. And then we came back, and it was so worth it, man. It was wonderful. We're gonna do it again, only we're gonna go to Fairbanks this time. I want to go all the way up.
We went on a
your
small
tour?
boat. 80 people only on the boat.
Oh wow!
Yeah. We went out of Anchorage and went all the way over to where the Valdez spill happened and then came back. But we could go right up to this stuff because we're on a small boat.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
So did you get to see the helm of the boat where they control the boat? Did they take you up to that area?
Yes, the bridge. Yep, we got to meet the captain and the assistant captain and all those guys that do their thing. And we went to the main control room, which is sort of in the middle, down in the belly, sort of in the middle. And then they took us a quick walk through the actual engine room. But the engine room's a tough one because, it's hot down there and there's all kinds of shit going on. But
they make you wear earplugs?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that loud, but when you got to listen to that thing, that noise, that roar 24 hours a day or 12 hours a day, it bothers you after a while. But yeah, they had us wear. Yeah, that was the bomb. That was incredible.
Man, are you recording this? I don't see the recording light on.
No, we're streaming. We don't record. We stream now. There's no reason to record it, so we're streaming live, and it's on. It just goes to YouTube, where it lives. It's streaming to a few different places, but basically, it's mostly on YouTube. That's where So the way we do it is we take we use Opus to get the short clips, and so I used to record it to the computer. I found that it doesn't make any sense to do that anymore. Because once it's up and what am I ever going to do? Go back to the archives and pull it out? I could just go to YouTube and pull it out. So it's I don't save it.
So 2026, we're doing the Panama Canal, and we're leaving LA on like the 18th. No, on the 2nd, and we arrive in Tampa on the 19th. So it's like 20 days to go through.
Okay, so I have a question. How much weight do you guys gain on average on these cruises?
4 pounds.
Oh God, that's a terrible thing.
Wait,
Bruce, I'm going to challenge you to a new cruise that I found the other day that I'm seriously thinking about. It starts in Greenland and goes to Anchorage, and it's on an icebreaker.
Oh my God. How cool is that?
35 or 40 days.
So you got a room on an icebreaker?
So
for 45 days.
I forget how many days. There's like 6 cruises that they run, but they're all on icebreakers.
So you've heard that you can book a room on the big tankers that come across, right?
Right, but no, this is an icebreaker that has been converted into a cruise ship.
Oh, interesting.
And they say that they've got blackened curtains in there just so that you can
it's like daylight for the whole cruise, right?
Right. But they said you open up the curtains and there might be polar bears just right outside your window.
Wow. That would be phenomenal.
So in a few months we're doing Iceland. We're flying to Iceland. We're spending a week in Reykjavik or whatever that city is. Reykjavik, and then we're getting on a boat. We're doing eight days around the island, and we're going to stop at all the cities. And then we get off the boat and we fly to London, and we are in London for a week, and then we get on the plane and fly home. So we got a big one coming up.
Are you bringing stretch pants?
Probably.
You're going to need that for the norovirus.
Yeah.
I did a couple of shows. I did a couple of shows 500 miles from the North Pole in a army base.
Really?
Yeah. And the windows are painted black. Like I was there in May, So there was 24-hour sun. So the windows were painted black.
Is that to retain the heat from the glass
Oh,
windows?
it was so that you could sleep. You
Oh.
know,
Yeah,
so
it
that you
makes
could-
sense.
Yeah, and you know they actually had these long ropes like cable tying all the building together because when there's a squall or a snowstorm or whatever, like even if the building is 25 feet next to each other, like they expect you to tie in or to hold a rope to get to the other one because during if there's a snow, you might have to lose the building that's only 25 feet
You
away
can't.
from
You
Wow,
probably
that's
can't see
intense.
6
The
feet in
blizzard.
front of you, right?
You
Yeah,
can't you
yeah.
can't walk across. Yeah, that's the way it
Yeah.
was in Colfax or wherever it was.
Holy
Those
cow.
Places we went out, they had these ropes in between
Yeah.
the buildings so people could follow them when the winds was blowing.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I was
Hey,
in
listen, I got a
Trinidad,
really good friend. An old dear friend of mine, Memo Sanchez. I don't know if you guys know him. He worked for Harman for a while, but now he's working for a company that tunes the showrooms on cruise ships, and he works like 12 months a year. He's so busy tuning these rooms that they don't even give him a break for vacation. He
Wow.
hasn't been home in like months.
So he
And,
smarts. He just smarts. Is he smarting? Is
He
that what
just
he
has
does, John?
there's a briefcase with a computer and a couple of DAs and some microphones, and off he goes.
That's it. That's what he does. And he travels. He travels up. Most of this stuff is happening up in Italy. And I'm going to call him. I'm going to ask him to come into the show next week. See if he'll talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
That's all he does is tune the room.
So Christopher, how you doing? Tell me a story.
Oh, let's see. The big news here is that there's a lot of lead. So a couple of people that have surviving structures had their houses tested for lead, and the maximum amount of lead that the EPA has determined is 10 micrograms per square foot. And there are houses indoors that have 200 micrograms per square foot. And so apparently some of the firefighters have lead poisoning. I had my physical, so I went ahead and got tested for lead and arsenic and mercury. And so we'll see, but there is a bunch of lead, and so if there's 200 micrograms per square foot on an indoor structure, you can just start to imagine what's going on outside.
Oh, that's insane.
So
Bruce sent me a video link of Adam Carolla.
I was just going to ask you if you saw that.
Oh, that was fast. I
couldn't believe
couldn't
it.
stop watching it. It was great. I mean, the Army Corps of Engineers is so intense. They are so amazing could you believe what they've put together so that they could deal with this problem? I mean, I'm impressed with the logistics of what this guy was able to do.
Yeah, in the middle of the road, they set up these crushers, so they bring.
That's right down. That's literally.
It's
2 minutes from
unbelievable.
my house. They set up.
I wondered how close that was to you.
Right by Pacific Palisades High School is what they said, right?
Yes.
It's Temescal, Canyon Road, and PCH, and all of those, 3,000 homes that they're going to grind up are all fucking full of lead, and they just grind them right up in the middle of the street, 100 feet from the beach.
And they separate all that stuff.
Let it go. No one gives a flying fuck. And my contractor, who's a pretty smart guy, basically said I wouldn't swim in Santa Monica Bay for 5 years, and the clock hasn't started yet.
And you said last week, I think you saw some people out there swimming already.
I know not in
somebody
not,
I think
not up
was
in front of
swimming.
the Palisades, but I think down by the Santa Monica Pier. Yeah, there are people that are out there swimming. I mean,
so Jan, that vlog, that's an ongoing vlog he does. And when I first started watching it, he was in his car, kind of like Christopher is usually in his car, and he says, "I'm going to take you to my condo, and basically he walked around and talked to all these guys working about the houses they were working on, and then he went up into his condo to see if it was still there, and he went in and checked it all out. And so like every time he does a vlog, it's the next section of his experiences is what he's dealing with, and it's been so interesting. But I had just watched the one of the Army Corps of Engineers, and I said, "Man, Jan was gonna love this." And I sent it over
the
to
Army
you.
Corps engineer was very, very impressed. Here, I just copied the link. Let me see if I could throw it into the chat for you guys. There it is.
They're a management organization. I mean, they have some
they hire people
and engineers down there, but they're just subbing out. I mean,
right. That's what he said. They actually have no people that actually do it. They're just management.
Yeah, they just sub it out. So,
and he said that they don't do it all. They only do certain properties. People have decided to do their own stuff and he doesn't do anything that touches dirt either.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that if Army Corps does your house, they only take away the debris in the foundations. If you have any other hard surfaces, walkways, driveways, swimming pools, they don't do any of that.
Right. They don't touch anything that touches dirt is what he says.
Wow.
Which I don't quite understand.
Well, that doesn't make sense because they do remove the foundation.
Yeah, the foundation touches the dirt. Yeah.
But
but what a video.
Anyway.
You gotta watch the video, guys. It's just
I just put the link in. It's fascinating.
I'll have a look at that. But it's it's crazy. And then they're going to expedite all the permits, but then it's going to end up taking a very long time to get inspections done, and blah blah. So we'll see.
So a friend of mine said today that I had lunch with that they're dumping the shit in the Altadena golf course. And the whole town's having a cow.
Oh, I'm sure they're doing it. I'm sure they're doing the exact same thing, and they just chose the golf course, and that's where they're grinding the stuff up. But I mean, the stuff just gets ground up, open air. No one knows, and they just grind it up and take it away, and that's that. And
they're trying to reuse the concrete.
So clean. Decent concrete, right. That's very useful. So they grind it up and they keep it, because what's going to happen is that you're going to you clear away your foundation and you clear away 6 inches of topsoil, right? Because you've got all the lead everywhere. And then once all that's done, then you use that ground up cement as an aggregate to just spread around on the ground, compact. Well, you would put some dirt back, and then where you're going to do your foundation, you spread that aggregate around, compact it, spread some more around, compact it, and then you start putting up your footings for the foundation, and then you pour your foundation after you pulled your rebar and you've got all your drain pipes and inlets and outlets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they were showing how they were getting the rebar out of the concrete with these big magnetic claws. They were banging on things.
You can also use that aggregate for non-structural concrete. So that aggregate can go into like sidewalks and non-structural elements. It just can't go back into structural. It can be reused that way. So,
can I ask where all the lead is coming from, Chris?
Well, that's the first question I said. Where on earth is this stuff coming from? So
probably number 2 pencils.
So probably came from the paint and the insulation.
Ticonderogas, and no. So the thesis on where it's coming from is there are, not everybody in the Palisades is a gazillionaire, and there are a lot of older homes that had lead paint on the first 3, 4, 5, like houses built in the 20s, 30s, 40s. They've all got lead paint, and then they just painted over it with latex or whatever kind of paint.
Oh,
yeah. They have asbestos too. I would bet there's asbestos.
My whole floor in my ranch in Shadow Hills, I had carpeted floors, right? But one of the things when we put new carpet in is they took up all the floor and the old mat, and all these linoleum tiles were in there. And I says, let's pull this out and put hardwood down. And he says, no, we can't. This will be an expensive endeavor because all these linoleum tiles are asbestos. And
9 inch by 9 inch.
Yep. So that would, when they put my air conditioning in, they had to pull all the ducts out, and the air conditioning people did the spec and didn't realize that my ducts were that old. I had old ducts, and
Were they still laying eggs, or were
they were
they?
No, but that's
and
big
Quack,
asbestos.
they
quack,
had to
So
quack.
tent
yeah,
the whole house, and they looked like a bunch of Martians in there. And
Yeah.
luckily, the air conditioning company, I told them, I said, well, we didn't plan on this. I said, I'll split the bill with you because this is ridiculous. And they says, no, we should have known this, and we'll take care of it. I was really impressed.
yeah.
They
No,
really,
the
but I can imagine the
remediation
older
for
houses.
asbestos can be expensive. So then the
Yeah.
other big source is that a lot of roofing, where chimneys were and certain sections of the roof, they used to put down sheets of lead, right, so that they could guarantee that it was watertight, right, particularly on angles and anything like this. So there was a lot of lead used in construction back in the day, and all of those houses burned. So people are estimating that 1 million pounds of lead paint burned on those houses, and but yeah, it just went up in the air and came back down on the ground.
And then also there's popcorn ceilings. They had a lot of houses have that textured popcorn.
Yes,
Oh my
yeah,
God, yes.
That's right. They have the popcorn, which we call encapsulated asbestos, because it's encapsulated, and so you didn't have to get rid of it. But now that it burnt down, that asbestos is in the air too.
Yep. And well, it went into the ground, and then it rained, and it went into the, so yeah, it's a chemical nightmare. And
Then you had all the lithium from the car batteries.
correct. We had lithium, and then even lead acid batteries. There's another source. A lead acid battery in a car, when that burns, there's a lot of lead in there. And so yeah, there's
And
a
not to
lot of,
mention all the shit that people had in their garages,
right,
like, all that
paint,
old
old paint
crap.
cans and old paint cans that burned, and other
Thank you.
petrochemical derivatives, ethers and ketones, and paint thinners and acetone, and all of this stuff. And there's probably some 111. There's just everything. And so I got tested for my blood for this, and then the next step is I'm going to have my ADU tested for lead, arsenic, mercury, and dioxin. That's the word no one wants to pronounce, is the word dioxin, because if you test positive for dioxin, that's like having uranium.
Well, I was
And
listening
where
to
would
Bill
that come
Maher.
from?
Apparently, dioxin can be released from certain types of materials that burned at very high temperatures.
I believe it's galvanized pipe. Doesn't it come from
Galvanized pipe? And then I think there's some other materials that went. And just to give you an idea, I went to the main house today. They're starting to clear the debris, and so I was looking for a steel plate in the garage. I found it only slightly warped, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to be able to save that. But we were looking for a bronze sculpture, and it's just gone. And then not far away there was melted aluminum, and I looked at the guy and I said, but isn't it's hotter to smelt aluminum than it is to smelt bronze? And the guy's like, yep. And I said, okay, well, we've got
So much for
melted
that.
aluminum. Get the bronze, and
Well,
that's it. So it just melted. It
it's
wasn't.
insane. It's actually insane what happened.
What a lot of people forget is that the wind was blowing so hard that it looked like it was going to put the fire out. That's how hard the wind was blowing. So when you get that much combustible material with that much wind, I mean, that there are. I think I told you in one of the calls there was like an aluminum. Somebody got it right. There was like an aluminum Audi, and there's just nothing left of the Audi except for the engine block and the transmission. The rest of the car is gone, and it's like throwing a beer can in a fire. It just evaporates, and that's what happened to a lot of aluminum.
Well, I heard another thing that people have to be watching out for right now, and I was listening to Bill Maher, and he's talking about his biggest fear is plastic, the
Correct.
microplastic, because so
Correct.
much
Oh yeah.
plastic is in the air now
Oh my
because
God. And
everything was
all of
burnt.
these PVC coated windows and PVC pipes, and all of the houses in California have to have sprinklers. And those are all, really nice, thick PVC pipes. And yeah, all that stuff burned
The siding,
completely.
siding
And
houses that weren't
and
done.
yeah, and even old lead pipes, that were in some of these houses, they probably had lead pipes, or and all that stuff just got superheated, thousands of degrees.
Yeah, so all that stuff is in the air. We already have a big problem with microplastics in our blood, and so I'm
Chewing gum.
sure.
Did you see the research that just came out about chewing gum? How there's like 130 different kinds of microplastics in chewing gum. So you probably ought to stop chewing gum.
Oh my God, I used to love chewing gum.
Yeah, can't remember where I saw it, but I'm sure you can Google it. There was somebody.
Bazooka Joe is like my best friend. I mean, really.
So switching subjects, Jan, did you guys feel any of the earth moving last week?
Well, we did not. We were very fortunate here in Wahin that there was no movement of the earth, but Bangkok, not so lucky. Now you have to realize, I'm sure everybody has seen those videos of the skyscraper that fell right down like it was a demolition. The only good thing about that is that, could you imagine if it was already a completed building,
And people
all
are
the
in
people
it.
that would have died?
Might not
Instead,
have-
43
might not have
people.
collapsed. It would have.
Well,
No, it would have. It would have.
Right. So, did you see the water sloshing out of that one building?
Oh my God! It
There
was
was
not just one building; it was all of them. But there was one in particular. One in particular. There was a pool that the bottom fell out. It was like hanging off the side. They had a building with a pool that was on it, attached to the side of the building, and that when it shook, the bottom fell out. It was like flushing a toilet. You watched all that water go out.
So somebody had a camera that was on the roof of the building when the water was sloshing out, and they had some people were in these tubes in the pool, and there's a video of the water going up the side of the side of the pool and going over the edge of these poor kids were in the pool holding on to these things for dear life. And the water's the water's like, the waves are like 3 feet high in this pool and gushing over the side of the building.
That is scary. That is a scary thought.
It's very scary.
So you saw the window. You saw the window washer that was on the side of the building when the pool.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Flood and hit him over the roof. But no, Jan, on the building that collapsed, one of the things that I heard yesterday was the seismic design on that is to have a seismic neutralizer on the roof on the top 2 or 3 floors, and they hadn't got built that high. So there's supposed to have been some sort of anti-sway device on it, sort of like what's on the old Sears Tower that keeps the building stable. And so they hadn't gotten to that point, which
oh my goodness.
Well, seeing everything's an opinion on the show, I will tell you my opinion of what I understand is that because the way they build things here, it's all concrete and steel. Concrete and steel. No wood whatsoever on any of the walls. Everything is concrete. No plaster, no nothing. It's just painted concrete every place. And so, but they don't have earthquakes here. There are no earthquakes. The last earthquake they had was 100 years ago. So they haven't planned for earthquakes. It's scary, and not knowing right now how many structures are permanently damaged, and the people here in Bangkok are freaked out. I'm telling you, they are freaked out.
Well, then what was it? Monday, there was a 7.1 down by the American Samoas, down the South Pacific.
Right. Well, the other thing that people are scared of is because of the tsunamis that come here.
Yeah.
So when there's an earthquake, usually there's a tsunami. So all the people down south on the water were freaking out, completely freaking out.
It wasn't that long ago that they had a tsunami, right?
2001 was a huge tsunami.
Yeah.
How far are you from the waterfront, Jan?
I'm probably maybe 5 minutes by car, maybe 10 tops. But we're in high elevation, so I don't have to worry about the tsunami. If there's a tsunami, we'll be safe. As a matter of fact, there's never been a tsunami here in this city that I know of, and nor an earthquake. Where I'm living is paradise, basically
What's
paradise.
your city? What's your city?
Huahin, Huahin. It was built. It's where the king number 9 built his summer home, and he then decided he wanted to live here full time. And so until he got really sick and he had to go back to Bangkok to be in the hospital, he stayed here. Interesting. There's a guy that I'm going to meet. So my friend David just rented a condo right on the water in a very famous building. And the guy who lives right above him was the king's attendant, whenever you see a picture of the king in a wheelchair, this is the man that pushed the king. And he lives right above me, or he lives right above David. And I'm sure we're going to meet this guy. And I can't wait to hear some stories of what it's like to be around royalty, the king of Thailand, who, of course, is the richest monarch in the world.
How much is David paying for his condo?
Here, I don't know, but the average, you have to figure that, okay, so right now, as of today, the dollar is 34 to 1. And so basically, you got to figure he's paying probably about, for a 180-degree view of the ocean on the 19th floor, he's probably paying about a 2-bedroom, probably paying about $1,200 a month.
Is it a short-term rental or a long-term?
1 year.
Okay.
But he won't be here all the time, so I'm an avid set of keys to this place. I'll try to do a show from there. I think that'll be impressive. When set it up, they got high-speed internet. I'll just bring a computer and a camera, and it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. What a place! It's old, but it's nice. Old but nice. Anyway, we've been on the air a little bit longer. Anybody have anything they want to say? Usually there's some people that like to talk a little bit, but we haven't heard from today because we've been talking about so many different things. Ken Porter, you have anything you want to share?
Not really. The only thing I missed with Kurt Hare was, did he look at the PRG auction? There's a bunch of Meyer on it, and I didn't know if anything was there he was interested in.
Those auctions, they're not the best place to buy stuff because basically my understanding of auctions, and of course this is my opinion, is they're looking for the most amount of buck for the bang for the buck. So in other words, and I know that this is probably not happening at a PRG auction. My God, I hope would not. But a lot of these auctions, they put shills in the audience so that if there's somebody's bidding on something, the shills will bid it up.
You betcha.
So that and the other thing is that the auctioneers charge a percentage as well, plus tax, plus. I don't know why people buy so much stuff from auctions. It just doesn't make any sense to me because, a deal is something you're always looking for but never find. And an auction is an exact example of a deal that you will never find unless you're buying pallets of something that they don't know what they've got. But these days it's so sophisticated that it's really hard to get a deal at an auction.
But
And
they
plus,
have online.
you're buying
They have
it as
online.
is, where is.
Yeah, but they have online auctions where there's nobody on site. So it's just you bid and it is what it is.
Well, Joseph Finn, I get at least 3-4 emails a week from them of different auctions. So their auction business must be booming, for sure, because basically, people think it's psychology. It's like what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think about it. But it's like you get auction fever and you start bidding things up for more than you want to pay because you want to be the winner of the auction. So. Anyway, but one good thing that I read, Chris, about all the problems that you're having is that you guys are getting a tax increase, which is always amazing. The sales tax now just went up in Los Angeles County to 9.75%, and in Palmdale and Lancaster, The sales tax now is 11.25%.
We're
What
dealing
the
with
hell?
15.5 here where I am.
Yeah,
15.5.
but you don't pay income tax. You pay just VAT
No,
and
no,
GST.
yeah, no.
Well,
Yeah, there's a
that's
lot
what
of there are a lot of folks that are becoming more and more vocal and more frustrated with how California is being managed. So
Well, this is
Yeah,
a non-political show, so we're not talking about anything
no, I'm just
politics.
saying that you know it and then there was like some
things are going to come to a head soon.
well there was some I think it's LAHSA or something like this. There was this Los Angeles, LA homeless thing where they found out that they squandered billions of dollars, as if that would be a surprise. They literally, just took all the money out for management and consultants, and nothing happened to the homeless. But the management and people and the consultants made large sums of money, and essentially nothing happened. So
Well, usually what happens is if it's not your money, who gives a shit?
that's yeah, that and
Hey, it's not, hey, it's not my money. I don't give a fuck. Here, have you make as much as you want. Just make sure you do a good job. And if you don't do
no,
a good job, just don't get
that's
me in
right.
any trouble, all right?
That's right. You're spot on.
Yeah, it's human nature. Human nature.
Anyway, I
Anyway,
got to roll,
guys.
guys. Nice to see everybody. Have a great week.
All right, we're
And,
going
Have a
off
great
the air
week.
right now. Just remember, you make it happen. Everything you heard today is an opinion, so do your own research. We'll be back again next week for our 254th consecutive week in a row. Very impressive. Keep watching those shorts, which you guys seem to be loving, and it's great. And follow us on social media. And remember, click the like button. And everybody in the room should share the show. So let's do that. And hey, we're all famous. When you get stopped in the street and ask for an autograph, let me know, okay? I'm waiting for that day to happen, all right? Especially you, Fred. You're very famous now. And so is Davis. All right, David, thanks a lot, everybody. We're off the air, and we'll keep the room going. So see you next week. Remember, you make it happen. Make it happen. Be safe and prosperous this week, and we'll see you again next week, same time.